Welcome back to Online Marketing Tips, Tricks, and Secrets from Gill Media, the podcast by Gill Media. I'm so glad you could join us for episode 16.
Episode 16 already.
I know, right? Time flies when you're having fun, especially when we're diving deep into the world of digital marketing.
It really does.
Speaking of diving deep, remember our last episode where we explored the ins and outs of marketing automation?
Oh yeah, how could I forget?
Well, get ready for another exciting deep dive because today we're all about UX design.
UX design, one of my favorite topics, and we're not just talking about making websites pretty. We're going way beyond the surface to uncover how strategic UX design can truly elevate your website, leading to more conversions and giving your SEO a huge boost.
So let's break this down a bit. For those who might be new to the concept, what exactly is UX design?
UX design, or user experience design, is basically all about making sure that anyone who visits your website has a seamless and enjoyable experience. It's about thinking through every step of their journey, from the moment they land on your homepage to the final action they take, like making a purchase or signing up for a newsletter.
So it's not just about aesthetics, it's about functionality too.
Exactly. It's about creating a website that's not only visually appealing, but also easy to navigate, intuitive to use, and ultimately truly enjoyable to interact with.
And what's fascinating to me is that Google actually rewards websites that prioritize their users' experience with higher search rankings.
That's right. Google's algorithms are constantly evolving to deliver the most relevant and valuable search results to its users. And a key part of that is ensuring that the websites they rank highly actually provide a good user experience.
So it's like Google saying, hey, if you're making your visitors happy, we're going to make you happy by giving you a better spot in the search results.
Precisely. Google pays attention to things like how quickly your pages load, how long people stay on your site, and how often they bounce back to the search results. These are all signals that tell Google whether or not your site is providing a positive user experience.
Makes sense. If people are constantly leaving your site quickly, it's probably a sign that something's not quite right.
Exactly. Google sees that as a negative signal, suggesting that your content might not be relevant or that your site is difficult to use. And this can impact your search ranking.
So good UX is not just about aesthetics. It's a crucial factor in how Google views your site and how well you rank in search results.
Absolutely. And we've actually seen some amazing results with our own clients here at Gill Media when we focused on improving UX. For example, we had one client who was struggling with low engagement and a high bounce rate.
Oh, I remember that one. They had a really outdated website, right?
Yeah, their site wasn't very mobile friendly and the navigation was a bit clunky.
So what did you guys do to improve their UX?
Well, we started by simplifying their navigation, making it much easier for visitors to find what they were looking for. We also optimized their website for speed, which made a huge difference.
I bet people have zero patience these days for slow-loading websites.
You're telling me? And the results were impressive. We saw a 35% increase in user engagement.
Wow, that's huge.
And a 20% drop in bounce rate.
So by making the site easier to use and faster to load, you're able to keep people engaged and exploring the site longer.
Exactly. And that's a huge win for both the user experience and SEO.
It's amazing how impactful strategic UX design can be. It's not just about making a website look pretty. It's about creating a website that truly works for your visitors and for your SEO.
And speaking of SEO, one of the key areas where UX and SEO really go hand in hand is mobile optimization.
Mobile optimization, it's essential these days.
Absolutely. Did you know that over 60% of web traffic now comes from mobile devices?
Seriously, that's over half of all web traffic.
It is. So if your website isn't designed with mobile users in mind, you're potentially missing out on a huge chunk of potential visitors and customers.
And you're also missing out on Google's favor.
Right. Google prioritizes mobile-friendly websites in its search rankings. So if your site isn't optimized for mobile, you could be seeing a dip in your rankings, which means fewer people will find your site organically.
Makes perfect sense. I'm guilty of this myself. I'll instantly close a website if it's not loading properly on my phone.
I think we've all been there. And it's not just about making the site responsive. You have to think through the whole mobile experience.
A whole mobile experience. What do you mean?
Well, everything from the size of buttons and how they respond to touch to the placement of menus and the readability of the text. It all needs to be optimized for those smaller screens and those thumbs that are doing all the clicking and scrolling.
So it's like creating a whole different version of your website.
In a way, yes. It's about designing for that specific user context and making sure that the experience is seamless, intuitive, and enjoyable, even on those tiny screens.
And it's worth it, right? I mean, you mentioned earlier how much mobile traffic there is these days.
Oh, absolutely. We had another client who came to us with a website that was basically stuck in the desktop era. It was a nightmare to navigate on a phone, and their mobile traffic was suffering because of it.
So what did you do?
We redesigned their site with a mobile-first approach, taking into account all those factors we just discussed. We made sure the navigation was intuitive, the text was easy to read, and the overall experience was smooth and enjoyable on any device.
And what happened?
Their conversions skyrocketed. They saw a 50% increase in conversions within just 3 months of launching the new mobile-friendly site.
Wow, that's a huge improvement.
It just goes to show you how important it is to prioritize mobile optimization.
So we've established that UX design plays a major role in SEO and, more broadly, in the success of your website. But I think it's time to go a little deeper. How can we put these UX principles into practice?
Let's dive into that.
Because at the end of the day, we want to create websites that are not only visually appealing, but also functional and user-friendly.
Right. You could have the most stunning website in the world, but if it's difficult to navigate, slow to load, or just plain frustrating to use, people are going to bounce faster than you can say user experience.
Exactly. It's like having this gorgeous storefront that no one wants to walk into because it's just too confusing or too much of a hassle. So where do we start? What are some of the most common web design mistakes that we see that really hurt a website's UX? What are the things we should be avoiding at all costs?
Oh, there are definitely a few common culprits that we see time and time again.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest offenders is cluttered layouts. When you try to cram too much information onto a page, it overwhelms visitors. They don't know where to look, what to click on, and they end up feeling lost and frustrated.
It's like visual noise, right?
Exactly. It's like trying to have a conversation in a crowded, noisy room. You just can't focus on what's important.
And then there's the issue of slow-loading pages. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing again.
Absolutely. People are impatient. They expect websites to load almost instantly. And if your site takes too long, they're going to click away before they even see what you have to offer.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact page speed has on their SEO.
It's huge. Google takes page speed very seriously, and it's one of the factors they consider when ranking websites.
And speaking of outdated websites, poor mobile experience is another major UX killer.
Absolutely. Like we were saying earlier, with so much web traffic coming from mobile devices, it's essential to have a website that's mobile friendly. If your site is difficult to navigate or just plain ugly on a phone or tablet, you're going to lose a lot of potential visitors.
And finally, we have complicated navigation. It's a classic UX mistake that can really make or break a website.
You're right. Navigation is the backbone of your website. If visitors can't find what they're looking for quickly and easily, they're going to get frustrated and leave. We've all been on websites where we've clicked through endless menus and submenus trying to find a specific piece of information, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded.
Exactly. And it's completely avoidable. With a little planning and some strategic design choices, you can create a navigation system that's clear, intuitive, and easy to use.
So now that we know what to avoid, what are some of the best practices for creating a UX-friendly website? What are the things we should be doing?
Well, first and foremost, we always emphasize simplicity. Keep things clean, uncluttered, and easy to understand.
I love that. Simplicity is key.
It really is. Your website should be intuitive and easy to navigate, even for someone who's never seen it before.
No one wants to waste time trying to figure out how a website works.
Exactly. Think about it from the user's perspective. They should be able to land on your homepage and instantly know what your site is about and how to find what they're looking for. It's all about creating a seamless and enjoyable experience that guides visitors effortlessly towards their goals.
And of course, we can't stress enough how crucial mobile optimization is. We've already talked about it, but it bears repeating.
You're right. It's not just a nice to have these days, it's an absolute must-have. So make sure your website is fully responsive, meaning it adapts seamlessly to different screen sizes. Test it thoroughly on various devices to make sure the experience is smooth and enjoyable no matter how someone is accessing your site.
And make sure those buttons are big enough for our clumsy thumbs.
Definitely. All right, next up, white space. It might seem counterintuitive, but using white space effectively can actually make your website more visually appealing and easier to read.
White space, you mean like leaving blank areas on the page? I always thought of white space as wasted space.
I know, it seems strange, right? But think about it this way. When you have too much text and imagery crammed together, it creates visual clutter that makes it hard for the eye to focus. It's overwhelming. But when you strategically incorporate white space, it gives your content room to breathe. It creates visual breaks that make it easier to scan and digest information.
It's like taking a deep breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It gives your eyes a break from all the visual noise.
Exactly. And it can make a big difference in how long people stay on your page and how engaged they are with your content. Now, we've talked a lot about visuals, but we can't forget about page speed. It's essential for both user experience and SEO, so make sure you're optimizing your images, leveraging browser caching, and choosing a reliable hosting provider that can deliver fast loading times.
Great points.
And speaking of making things easier, let's talk about accessibility. It's all about ensuring that your website is usable by everyone, regardless of their abilities.
I love that. Inclusivity is so important and something we're really passionate about here at Go Media.
We are. And it's not just about being inclusive, it's also a legal requirement in many countries. So what are some things we can do to make our websites more accessible?
Well, we can start by adding alt text to our images, which provides a text description that screen readers can use to convey the image to visually impaired users.
That's so important, and it's a simple change that can make a big difference.
And then we can make sure we're using clear fonts and good color contrast to make the text easy to read for everyone.
And making sure the site is navigable using the keyboard for those who can't use a mouse.
Right. It's all about considering the different ways people might interact with your website and making sure it's accessible to everyone.
Exactly. We want everyone to have a great experience on our clients' websites, regardless of their abilities.
Absolutely. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from mobile optimization to visual design to accessibility. But now I'm really excited to dive into some really practical, actionable tips that our listeners can implement on their own websites.
I'm ready for that.
Let's get into some specific UX design strategies that can make a real difference in how people experience their websites.
Sounds good to me. Let's start with navigation, shall we? I mean, it's the backbone of any website, really. If people can't find their way around easily, if they can't find what they're looking for, they're probably just going to get frustrated and leave.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Yeah.
I've definitely been on websites where I felt like I was wandering around in circles, clicking on link after link, and still not getting anywhere.
We've all been there, haven't we? And that's why it's so crucial to have a clear and intuitive navigation structure on your website. Your menu should be concise, well-organized, and easy for anyone to understand. Think of it like a roadmap for your site. It should guide visitors to their destination without any detours or dead ends.
Absolutely. And speaking of easy navigation, one of my favorite tools is the sticky header. You know, those menus that stay put at the top of the page even as you scroll down. They're a lifesaver for user experience.
Oh, sticky headers, they're fantastic. They provide that constant access to those essential links no matter where you are on the page. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference in terms of usability. It's like having a helpful guide right there with you at all times.
Okay, so we've got navigation covered. Now let's talk about first impressions. As they say, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and that's definitely true for your website's homepage.
You're so right about that. Your homepage, it's like the digital storefront for your brand. It's often the very first thing people see when they visit your website, so you really want to make it count.
So how do we make that homepage count? What are the key elements we need to focus on to really wow our visitors from the get-go?
Well, first things first, you absolutely need a clear and compelling headline that grabs their attention and tells them exactly what you're all about. Think of it like your elevator pitch. You only have a few seconds to make an impact, so make those seconds count.
Right. No time for rambling on a homepage. Get to the point, grab their attention, and make them want to stick around. And once we've got their attention, we need to tell them what to do next.
Exactly. You need a strong call to action. What is the one thing you want visitors to do once they land on your homepage? Do you want them to browse your products, sign up for your newsletter, download a free guide? Whatever it is, make it crystal clear and make it easy for them to take that next step.
So clear headline, compelling call to action, and of course, we can't forget about the visuals.
Oh, absolutely. The layout, the design, the images you use, it all needs to be visually engaging and appealing. Remember, we're aiming for that wow factor from the moment they arrive on your site.
It's all about creating a homepage that's both informative and visually appealing.
Right. It's a balancing act, but when it's done right, it's a thing of beauty.
Now, we've talked a lot about page speed already, but it's so important. I think it deserves its own spotlight.
It really does. And it's not just about keeping Google happy. It's about respecting your visitors' time. It's so true. We live in a fast-paced world where people have short attention spans. If your website takes too long to load, they're going to bounce before they even see what you have to offer.
Exactly. And there's research that shows that even a 1-second delay in page load time can lead to a significant drop in conversions.
So if people are waiting around for your site to load, you're literally losing money.
You are. That's why optimizing your page speed is absolutely crucial for both UX and your bottom line.
So let's get practical. What are some things our listeners can do to give their website a speed boost?
Okay, here are a few key areas to focus on. First, make sure you're optimizing your images. Compress them without sacrificing quality. There are plenty of tools available online that can help you do that.
Like what?
TinyPNG is a popular one. It's super easy to use. You just drag and drop your images and it compresses them right there for you.
Awesome.
And then make sure you're leveraging browser caching, which allows repeat visitors to load your site faster because their browser stores certain elements locally. I've heard of browser caching, but I'm not really sure how it works.
Basically, when someone visits your site, their browser saves certain files, like images and scripts, so that the next time they visit, those files don't have to be downloaded again. It makes the loading process much faster.
That makes sense. And then, of course, we can't forget about our hosting provider.
Oh, absolutely. You want to make sure you're choosing a reliable hosting provider that can deliver those fast loading times. If your hosting is slow, it doesn't matter how much you optimize your site, it's still going to be slow.
Good point. So optimize images, leverage browser caching, choose a good hosting provider.
Yeah.
Got it. What else?
Use Google PageSpeed Insights. It's a fantastic tool that analyzes your site and gives you specific recommendations for improvement. It's really helpful for identifying any speed bumps that might be slowing you down.
That's great. I'll definitely check that out. Now, speaking of visuals, let's talk about how we can incorporate images and videos effectively without sacrificing page speed. Because, let's be honest, we all love a website that's visually appealing, but we don't want to end up with a site that looks great but takes forever to load.
That's the balance we need to strike. High-quality visuals are key for creating an engaging website, but they can also be major culprits when it comes to slow loading times. So what's the solution?
What is the solution?
Lazy loading. Remember we talked about that earlier. It's a really smart way to optimize images and videos by only loading them when they're needed, rather than loading all of them at once when the page loads.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, images that are further down the page will only load when the user scrolls to that section.
Exactly. It's a fantastic way to improve page speed without sacrificing the visual appeal of your site.
I love it. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about forms.
Forms, the bane of every internet user's existence.
You're not wrong. We all have to fill out forms online from time to time, but they can be such a pain. So let's talk about how we can make the experience a little less painful.
Yes, let's do that. How can we make forms more user-friendly? Well, first and foremost, keep them short and sweet. Only ask for the information you absolutely need. No one wants to spend their time filling out a novel just to sign up for your email list.
And pre-fill fields whenever possible.
Oh, yes, please. If you already have some of the user's information, like their name or email address, pre-fill those fields for them. It saves them time and effort, and it makes the whole process much smoother.
Absolutely. And if you do have a longer form, a multi-step form, consider using a progress indicator so people know how far along they are in the process.
That's a great tip. Progress indicators can be really helpful for longer forms. It sets clear expectations and helps users feel like they're making progress. It's like that little pat on the back that says, you're almost there.
It's those little things that can make a big difference in the overall user experience. Okay, I want to circle back to mobile-first design for a moment. We touched on it earlier, but I think it's worth emphasizing just how crucial it is in today's mobile-driven world. It's not just about making your site responsive, it's about designing with mobile users in mind from the very beginning.
You're absolutely right. And when we're talking about designing for mobile, there are a few key things we need to keep in mind. Navigation is super important. Make sure those menus are easy to use on a touch screen. Think about using a hamburger menu or maybe a simplified navigation structure to save space and make it super easy to browse on a smaller screen.
Right, because trying to navigate a complex menu on a tiny phone screen is no one's idea of fun. And we need to make sure the text is large enough to read comfortably on a phone and that the buttons are easy to tap with a finger.
Exactly. We want to make sure the whole experience is smooth and frustration-free, no matter what device someone is using.
And as always, test, test, test. Make sure your website is working smoothly on different devices and screen sizes.
Absolutely. Don't just assume it's going to work perfectly on every device. You need to test it thoroughly to be sure.
Okay, last but certainly not least, let's talk about trust signals.
Trust. The cornerstone of any successful online business. People are much more likely to do business with you if they feel like they can trust you.
That's so true. And it's even more important online, where there's so much competition and skepticism. You really need to go the extra mile to build that trust.
Exactly. So how do we do that? How do we show our website visitors that we're trustworthy and that they can feel confident doing business with us?
Well, one really effective way is to showcase testimonials from happy customers.
Testimonials are gold. Nothing builds trust like social proof. When potential customers see that other people have had positive experiences with your brand, they're much more likely to believe what you say.
And we can display any relevant certifications or awards we've earned.
Oh, absolutely. Those third-party endorsements add credibility and show potential customers that you're legitimate.
And we always want to make sure our website is secure, right?
Essential. No one wants to hand over their personal information to a website that doesn't look secure. So make sure you're using HTTPS, keep your software up to date, and display those trust badges prominently.
Trust badges.
You know, those little icons that show that your site is secure and that their data is safe with you. It's a small detail, but it can make a big difference in building trust. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from navigation and homepage design to trust signals and everything in between.
We have.
But I think it's really important to emphasize that UX design is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
So true. It's not like you can just check it off your to-do list and move on.
Nope. The digital landscape is constantly evolving, and user expectations are constantly changing. What works today might not work tomorrow. So how do we stay on top of things and continuously improve our website's UX?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we make sure we're always delivering the best possible experience for our visitors, even as technology and trends change?
Well, one of the best things about working in digital marketing these days is that we have so much data at our fingertips. We can really get into the nitty-gritty of how people are interacting with websites, which is super valuable when it comes to UX.
Oh yeah, data is king.
It really is. Tools like Google Analytics, I mean, it's like a gold mine of information. We can see what pages people are visiting, how long they're staying on each page, where they're clicking, where they're dropping off. It's amazing.
It's like having a backstage pass to their entire online journey, isn't it?
It is. And by analyzing this data, we can really start to identify areas where the user experience might be hitting a snag. Maybe there's a page with a really high bounce rate, for example, or a call to action that's not converting as well as it should.
So we can use this data to uncover the why behind user behavior and make more informed decisions about how to improve their experience.
Exactly. It's like being a detective for websites. You're looking for clues, you're piecing together the evidence, and you're using that information to solve the mystery of why people aren't converting or why they're not engaging with your site the way you want them to.
I love that analogy. And then there are heat maps, another powerful tool for understanding user behavior.
Heat maps are so cool. They're visual representations that show us exactly where people are clicking and scrolling on each page.
So it's like seeing the website through the eyes of our visitors.
It is. You can literally see what's grabbing their attention and what they might be completely overlooking. It's incredibly insightful.
It sounds like it. And then there's A/B testing, one of my favorite ways to really fine-tune the user experience.
A/B testing, it's a game changer. It's all about experimenting with different regions of a page or an element to see what performs best.
So you might have two different headlines, for example, and you show version A to half your visitors and version B to the other half, and then you track which one performs better.
Exactly. You can test all sorts of things. Headlines, calls to action, layouts, images, even the color of a button.
It's all about finding what resonates best with your audience and drives the most conversions.
It is. And the beauty of A/B testing is that you're not just relying on your gut feeling. You're making data-driven decisions that are based on real user behavior.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
It does. You know, I was reading a case study recently about an e-commerce company that increased their sales by 15%. Simply by changing the placement of their add to cart button.
Wow, 15%. That's amazing, just by moving a button.
I know, right? It seems like such a small change, but it made a huge difference in their conversion rate. And that's the power of A/B testing. You never know what small tweak might have a big impact.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
But even with all this data and all these tools at our disposal, I think it's important to remember that there's no substitute for direct feedback from users.
I completely agree. All the data in the world can't replace real human feedback.
Exactly. So talk to your users. Send out surveys, do usability testing, make it easy for people to leave reviews and share their thoughts.
The more feedback you can gather, the better you'll understand what's working, what needs improvement, and how you can make your website the best it can be.
It's all about creating a feedback loop. You're constantly learning and improving based on what your users are telling you.
That's it. It's a continuous process of optimization and improvement.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into UX design, I think the big takeaway here is that investing in UX is really an investment in the success of your website and ultimately the success of your business.
Couldn't have said it better myself. When you create a website that's user-friendly, enjoyable to use, and designed to convert, you're not only going to see those SEO benefits in terms of higher rankings, but you're also going to keep your visitors engaged, happy, and coming back for more.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
Creating a website that truly works for both your visitors and your business goals.
it is. So to everyone listening out there, we challenge you to take action. Think about your own website. What's one thing you can do today to improve the user experience?
Even a small change can make a big difference. Maybe it's simplifying your navigation, maybe it's optimizing your homepage, maybe it's running an A/B test on that call to action that's not performing as well as you'd like. Whatever it is, start somewhere, start today, and keep iterating.
And if you ever need a helping hand along the way, you know where to find us. Gill Media is always here to help you create a website that's not only beautiful, but also brilliantly effective.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Online Marketing Tips, Tricks, and Secrets from Gill Media. We'll see you next time for more actionable insights to help you grow your business online.